Hey guys, Josh from Sportitude here, and it is shoe review time, and the review is going to be on the New Balance 1080 version 9. This little guy right here. So some pretty cool updates to this shoe, so I'm really looking forward to giving you as much information as possible, and so you can potentially add this to your running kit. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. First things first, let's talk about what foot type should be running inside this shoe. Now, I'm going to cross some controversial boundaries through here because technically when you pick up a shoe like this, it's neutral. So there's no additional dual density support on the medial side. It's nice and stable. However, we've had some great success fitting some slightly pronated foot types inside this shoe. We're talking the minority, so runners that technically do over-pronate, roll in over that arch, but may need a little bit of assistance, but don't like the feeling of support systems from some other brands. So to paint that picture for you, so technically a neutral foot type is something that looks a little bit like this. So we have a high arch or high navicular region through here, so it's quite pitched. Bit of real estate, a bit of air between the actual shape of the arch and where the contact point of the shoe is as well. So that's what we classify as a neutral to supinated foot type. So a lot of the pressure is going to be on the outside of that foot as you go through your gait cycle. When we're talking a slightly pronated foot type, on the flip side here, we're looking at a foot that's a little bit flatter in the arch. So when we're talking about contact to loading phase or braking phase, the arch does flatten out quite a bit through here. So there are some runners, and as I've touched on before, more often than not it's the minority that just don't like a feeling of support system underneath the arch right through here, and we prefer to run in what we classify as a stable neutral shoe. Now that being said, stable neutral is a category that's growing season after season, so not a lot of stores are actually classifying or putting a designated stable neutral category in their shop. However, specialist stores like us and a few other good specialty retailers around the country will actually diagnose what stable neutral is when you come into the shop. So 1080, neutral and stable neutral. So like all my shoe reviews, I do like to start from the ground and work my way up. So I'm just going to grab the ladies model through here, and yes, you're right, the ladies and men's look exactly the same. So New Balance have saved some money in materials there. No, they just made gender neutral models through here. Obviously black and white is still a very popular and high in demand colour. So underneath, let's look at the outsole. So we've got full ground contact. So what I mean by that is there's no trussic beam splitting the heel on the forefoot. So there's a full outsole configuration the whole way through, from heel through to forefoot. They do have a slightly harder carbon rubber underneath that heel through there for that heel striker that comes down and needs a little bit more rigidity and support underneath that contact zone. However, being full ground contact, and for myself being a midfoot striker, I've done a few test runs in the 1080 and I can say I do like it, but I've got plenty of real estate through here for when my foot does come down in that midfoot sort of contact zone transition. So I'm not relying on a trussic beam to keep me nice and stable. Having that full ground contact just gives me real confidence when I'm putting my foot down. The other thing to note as you come through to the forefoot is there's not a lot going on in terms of the flexibility through that region. So what I mean by that is they haven't cut into the outsole, which creates a really flexible forefoot. You can see through here we've sort of got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little slits in the outsole. So if I bring that closer to you, you might be able to see a little bit better through there. So having those little slits does provide a little bit of flexibility on toe off. However, as I touched on earlier, being a stable neutral shoe, it's kind of a good thing having a bit more support and rigidity on that toe-off phase to keep your forefoot nice and balanced and stable. So sometimes when you've got a density of foam which is quite soft, which is what the New Balance Fresh Foam is, if it's too flexible underneath and too soft, you're going to get too much movement. So I suppose they've compromised with making it a little bit more rigid or stiffer through the forefoot because they've got a really soft layer of cushioning. So that's why New Balance have essentially gone down that engineering path. So moving on to the midsole. Fresh foam cushioning system, which has been on the market now for a number of years, and the first 1080 they rolled out in was the V6, and the V6 was by far one of my favourite stable neutral running shoes of its time. Ran a couple of marathons in them, really liked them, and V7 and V8 I didn't quite warm to in the 1080 family. However, the two runs I've been for in the 1080 V9 I've been really impressed with, so who knows, I might use it for my next marathon. Still decide. But we're talking a 8mm offset as well, so 8mm heel to toe gradient inside this shoe. So therefore it's not really great for a really hard heel striker because it is so soft and that gradient is a little bit lower. So we want to see potentially someone who's more of a midfoot striker inside this shoe. However, there is the engineering structure that to cater for a heel striker if need be, but because of that offset, because of that density of foam being so soft, it's not an absolute go-to for a true heel striker in my humble opinion. Happy for people to add their comment below and challenge me on that theory, but that's okay. So as you come through to the forefoot, obviously the gradient drops down a little bit and just provides a nice flexible sort of sprung last through that forefoot in conjunction with that slightly stiffer outsole as well. So moving on to the upper. So we've got a slightly shallower heel counter at the back through here. So it is an internal heel counter, so you can feel the actual shoe itself has a little bit of support through this beam through here, or this structure configuration through here. So it does provide enough support around the back of your heel and calcaneus. However, it is a bit shallower. So looking at that shoe when I first got it out of the box, I thought, oh, what have they done here? Because it's a little bit too shallow. I'm going to slip out of the shoe. I utilised in the last hole. I still felt nice and secure, and it potentially might be because the shoe ever so slightly does angle in around the back of that heel, so you get a nice lock, even though it's not that high. Coming through to the midfoot, it's got a nice little piece of overlays through here, which just helps give that midfoot some stability over the top of that navicular. And then as you come through the forefoot, it's a nice generous forefoot, jacquard mesh engineering, which essentially provides plenty of breathability, but a nice, strong, stable upper as well. However, I do need to touch on the fit of the forefoot. So it is relatively generous through that width platform, but nice and shallow. So that may sound like I'm contradicting myself here, but to give you a bit of a better picture at home is that in the past few years in the New Balance 1080, I've ran in a D width myself, so standard width. However, the couple of runs I've had, I've actually done it in 2E and felt really great. Little bit more width than what I'm used to. However, what I would find in the D width, it would probably be a little bit too tight on my foot. So I'm actually liking going to that extra width. So if you've been a 1080 runner in the past, just question yourself on whether you should be considering a D, a 2E or a 4E. So obviously our team at Sportitude will be able to help you out with that. Drop us an email, service@sportitude.com.au, and we'll be able to assist you with finding the right width. So obviously neutral shoes and stable neutral shoes, we can put orthotics inside them. I personally found with my polyprene orthotic, I didn't get the depth and support around the back of the shoe through here. However, that being the case, I do have sort of a good 3 to 4 mil heel raise inside my orthotic, so that does just pop it up a bit too high. Without the orthotic though, I actually felt nice and secure inside the shoe, so just questioning the depth at the back of the heel through here. So if you've got an orthotic and it has sort of quite a generous heel raise, just questioning whether it's going to be deep enough, or the shoe's going to be deep enough for you to cater for that orthotic. Obviously there's the New Balance 880, which is naturally a lot deeper and a bit more support around the back of that heel. So if you're a New Balance fan and you do have an orthotic and you need a neutral shoe, I'd probably encourage you into the 880 over the 1080 purely for that depth factor. So wrapping up, the New Balance 1080, I do like this shoe. It's got great cushioning, nice and supportive. The shoe itself isn't too heavy on the foot by any means. You look at the weights and you're sort of pushing about 296 grams for the men's and roughly 287 for the ladies. Now that is sort of up around the slightly heavier neutral weights in terms of the other comparative models, glycerins and nimbuses, etc. However, being the shoe and how it's designed, it feels nice and light and really responsive and quite whippy on the foot. So I tip my hat to New Balance and their engineering department and what they've done with this version 9. I'm wrapped with it. I think it's going to cater for a lot of pre-version 7, version 8 runners like myself. Version 6 loved it, and now I'm really excited. I can potentially see myself running another marathon in this shoe for sure. So there you have it, guys. Any further questions, just drop a comment in this video below. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. And yeah, until next time, happy running. We'll see you soon.